President Bola Tinubu has assured Nigerians that women will be adequately represented in his administration. The president says Nigerian women have paid the price for Nigeria's development, peace, and unity. So they must be appreciated. During his first foreign trip to the summit for a new global finance impact in Paris, France, where he met with some Nigerians resident in that country, he assured them that women would form part of his cabinet. Nigerians, especially women, are eager to see how his cabinet will be included with women. During the campaign trail, women played key roles in canvassing for President Tinubu-led administration. Now they expect to reap the benefits of their hard work. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by a woman who's been in the mix of President Bola Tinubu and the APC's campaigns. She held the position of Deputy Chairman of the Media and Communication Committee in the Tinubu-Shatima Women Presidential Campaign team. And before then, she's been canvassing for women empowerment and inclusion. Mary Ikoku, she joins me live. Good to see you and thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me, Sulai.
So this is it. And first, let's start off by talking about your transition. You're still, I said a smile on your face. You're still an activist for women's rights and as well as children. But again, when you made that pause and ventured into politics, how exciting was it for you?
Well, that was really my foray into politics. It wasn't like a flash in the pan kind of movement. I really had the baptism, in front of the National Assembly, while we were protesting and demanding that the Ninth National Assembly reconsiders the 5 gender bills which they, roundly disregarded and threw away. And I think it was from that, in front of that gate, that it dawned on me, like a voice spoke to me, like, what are you doing here? Advocacy is good, yeah, you've been doing that for years, but election is around the corner. Why don't you go and run and get into that National Assembly? And that was it for me. I went and I was already in the party. I went to APC, of course, with my, being urged by my principal there, Dr. Alex Oti, remember. So we all went to APC and did my work for the party, and the party is also very interesting, that from inception, the first Women National Conference of the APC, I was appointed into that conference as in Media and Publicity Committee, which was chaired by Honorable Abike Dabiri, and I was the chairman of the Strategic Communications team in that under her, a subcommittee under her. And then after that, there was convention. I was also appointed into the Media and Publicity Committee of the National Convention, and I was a national delegate of the party for the primaries. And of course, we know what happened during the primaries. People had expectations. There were stories about the former Senate president being the consensus candidate and all of that. But of course, I came there with my strong conviction of who I wanted as presidential candidate, even though there were some underhand covert operations that went on. I decided to vote my conscience, the person who I believe will lead Nigeria out of the woods. And I'm happy that I did that. And at the end of the day, I saw the acceptance speech of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and that moment I knew that he would become the president eventually. So I'm not, I didn't go into politics for the sake of going into politics. You know that over the years I've been training through Emerge Women Development Initiative. We've been training women and recruiting women who we believe had the competencies, character, and capacity who could run for office. And we've been providing training for them. Of course, 2019 election, we trained over 800 women who ran for elective positions. So that has continued. Transitioning is like you asked how I'm transitioning. It's the same. The only thing is that you are now doing it from inside the politics. For all the advocacy, even within my party, I still, right now, my eyes I'm looking at, because the speaker just, I saw a list. I said, this is the speaker's aides. And while some women are jubilating, congratulating their friend who made the list, I was troubled, you know.
Why were you troubled?
I asked them, 33 names on this list, only 2 women. Are you ladies kidding me? Like, are you seriously celebrating this list? So the consciousness is there. You just have to continue, even though the advocacy part of me is still there.
Yeah.
So even within my party, I'm still looking out for where are they having the women? Who is appointing women? Okay, you are the Senate president.
You know the fear now is getting some of you into the mix and leaving the space for more people, agitators on women's inclusion. Because I recall you actually also cut your teeth working with the late Professor Dora Akunyili of blessed memory. So are we likely to be gifted with some firebrand, you know, women leader in this administration? Well,
that is the prerogative of the president to decide who and who will make his cabinets. But on the inauguration day, and not even his inauguration, I think even from his blueprint before he started running for office, he had said that he will give priority to women. And he has 5 pillars, 5 thematic areas that this president has promised Nigerian women and girls. And those 5 thematic areas are social and political inclusion is one of the things he has promised Nigerian women. And for that, he was going to say he will work with the National Assembly to ensure that the right bills, you know, are passed, and he will assent to them to make sure that we promote, you know, female employment across the MDAs. So getting senior officials that are women within the ministries, departments, and agencies of the government. And he will also ask the private sector to do alike. So, and even in that same thematic area of the president, he says he will increase women's political participation in his government to, at the very least he can do, is 35%. And what that means is that his ministers, if he's going to implement that, it means that his ministers, 35% of his ministers will be women. 35% of board chairs will be women. 35% of, you know, DGs, executive secretaries, and all of those government organizations, I mean departments, ministries, departments, and agencies will be women, including his senior special advisors. And you can see that he's, it seems to be, he's living up to that. Even the first few 10 appointments he's made, I think either 10 or 11 out of the 20 that special advisors he had requested from the national, approval from the National Assembly. If you look at those, out of those 10 or 11, there are 4 women there. And that is already 35% representation.
And that's why you're thinking that, sorry to cut you, that's why you're thinking that, for instance, the list from the Office of the Speaker should take a cue from what the President has started.
Yes, that's why the list got me, it was quite concerning to me, you know what I mean? But you see, the women also, some of the women in politics, because I wouldn't also blame them, they were celebrating that a member, their friend, was so appointed. But I was more interested in how many advisors, how many of these advisors are women. And I realized that we're just 2 women out of 33 lists, and that made me really sad. But you see, the thing is that even the speaker may not even have been better advised, because all of them would naturally will have to follow because everything rises and falls with leadership. If the president shows that example, I see no reason, I don't see other people not taking a cue from the president. And remember that he's also someone who whose wife, this is the first time in the history of Nigeria that we're having a First Lady of Federal Republic of Nigeria who had been First Lady of a state for 8 years. She wasn't just a First Lady of a state. She was also a First Lady that had a lot of conceptual programs that were very laudable. My kids were part of the, the spelling bee competition then in Lagos. So I, for the love of me, I didn't imagine that it would be any different. And also the First Lady will be the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria who has legislative experience. So for that reason, even she understands representation. So she being there is also a plus for Nigerian women. So I think that the 5 thematic areas that the president has promised women and girls of this country will be a welcome development, because he says he would use true legislation and mandate the federal executive to reserve. And
that's the area.
Minimum.
Yes, that's the area I want us to actually expand. Sorry to cut you, Mary. That's where I want us to expand, because you're coming home. The president is a former senator.
Yes.
The wife of former senator.
Yes.
The vice president, a former senator.
Absolutely.
So now, coming to legislation and see how he can bring to bear this with his colleagues in the hallowed chamber, plus his chief of staff, who is also
former speaker,
a lawmaker.
Yes.
So how soon are we likely to see this get to fruition? He needs to activate this in the days to come.
Of course, the first line of actions we would really want to see are his cabinet, formation of his cabinet. I think that women are so hopeful. Women are looking to see. We are just having our calculators in our hands, and we're looking to see how many women will form that cabinet. He has started well already. He's made his promises, and I don't think he's a man who fails, who doesn't keep his word to his words. And so I believe that those 5 thematic areas that he has promised Nigerian women, they are quite germane. And if you get it right, problems of Nigerian women, the historical imbalances that even people use certain traditional attitudes. They say, I'm a traditional man. All of those things, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is about to address such imbalances.
Do those things still exist?
They do still exist. He's looking at social and political inclusion. He's looking at educational parity, where he's going to make sure that the young girls stay in school. If you look at the number of out-of-school children, you can really know how many are girls. The number is alarming. So he's going to intentionally make policies that will address these issues. There are already existing policies there. But you see, most times the challenge of Nigeria is that it's often not about poor policy decisions of the government or even poor implementation of those policies. Oftentimes, government policies, projects, and programs, they fail, not for lack of not because those policies of the government are not well thought out. And it's not even because of poor policy implementation. Oftentimes, it may just be largely due to inadequate communication attention being paid to those policies of the government. Many people do not even realize that Nigeria is currently constituted today constitutionally. Every child in this country has a right to compulsory, free and compulsory education. In Nigeria, if you're a citizen of this country, it is free and it's compulsory. So if they do understand that, you won't see children hawking on the street. They will be in class. But I don't think that has been effectively communicated. You can't lead if you can't communicate. And communication is very, very
Pella
key.
said something about, sensitizing the Nigerian public, which he thinks has dipped. He spoke about the National Orientation Agency. You're also a communication expert. How well do you think the government can bridge that gap, which has always been there in terms of sensitization and informing the people?
Oh, yeah. You know, the thing is that it's still the problem of communication. And if communication, if it's not strategic, if it's not effective, you've not started communicating. And sometimes we think, and even presidents, past presidents, you know, the government, they've often believed that what you need is a journalist as your spokesperson. But what you actually need, because, you know, in journalism, we're taught that you are trained to have eyes, nose, ear for getting the news. You can sniff news and quickly go and report it. And while you are reporting it, make sure that you are within the code of conduct or the ethics of the profession. But because those people who take these jobs are trained to hunt for news and report, sometimes you see events of the government functionaries that should be strategically managed. You see them in the public domain. So sometimes I think that when it is strategic, all they need, when our government need to understand that what you need is actually a professional who is skilled in strategic communication, and in this case, public communication. Somebody who also understands issues analysis and perception management. It's good to have eyes for the spot, the news and all that. That should be where you are right now, not the other way. So, because it is very important, that National Orientation Agency, I believe that when the right person who understands how to effectively do the mapping, look at the demographics, and be able to use the appropriate communication channel to reach to those people. Because you can't some target audience you need to speak to with every languages, you know, like, and through certain means. You can't be using the English of a Professor Wole Soyinka for Mama Eya Alakara, you know. So a comms person understands these details and knows how to do your stakeholders mapping, demographics you're targeting, the appropriate channel, news channels to reach those people, you know. So I think when you get that person and somebody who understands advocacy in that place, you will be able to see that people, even at a point, I think there's another strata where you need to understand that our assets, our national assets, like you look at, you don't even know which one is a coat of arms, which one is the right flag. It's green, white, and green, quite all right. But some you see coat of arms in the middle. That's not our flag. So a lot of things have become anyhow, you know. But I know that once he puts in place the appropriate office and the right kind of skill set in that office, I'm sure that Nigeria will be on a roll.
And they truly can also help in trying to play down, if not take some of those cultural biases that affect women.
Of course. Of course.
Now let's see if we can close on this, and it has to do with political parties and women. And going to the EU report, the EU is not too excited, pointing out that gap where the political parties haven't actually done well in ensuring that women are included in politics in Nigeria.
Yes. Yeah, even, I think even coming to that one, if you look at the Gender Strategy Advancement International, GSAI, their ranking on Nigeria, Nigeria ranks 181. Out of 193 countries. And that is so abysmally low. It's not something we can be proud of. And not only that, Nigeria also loses a lot in terms of dollar terms, in naira terms, due to the inequality in the country. So I believe that with the 5 pillars of Tinubu's promise to Nigerian women, which are social and political inclusion, with educational parity for women and girls, and economic empowerment, social policies and programs. He also talked about fighting domestic violence and abuse. And when I looked at all those things, how am I going to be thinking of who I'm going to give my vote to? I mean, because all of these years I've been fighting, I've been a strong and consistent voice in this country. In fact, after my service to the nation, after serving as special advisor to late Professor Dora Akunyili, and then working with Dr. Konjiwela's graduate internship scheme. I think we met when I was doing the graduate internship scheme. I was her communications advisor. And then I did a short time in Bureau of Public Service Reforms. I went straight into this third sector, and it was just all about women inclusion, women's political participation, women's economic empowerment, financial inclusion, and all of that. But he heavily was changing certain traditional attitudes that are so harmful to our women and girls. And also, the president has pointed that as one of his key thematic areas that his administration will be looking at. I mean, will you imagine they are going to be setting up special policing, and they will be having special courts for treating cases of gender-based violence, sexual and gender-based violence? Oh my goodness, Nigerian women should just be ready to have fun with this administration. That's what I can see. Wow. And I sincerely pray that nothing changes, that the president remains focused on his blueprint and he doesn't deviate from it. In fact, he should make it better instead of deviation.
Well, promises are meant not to be broken, but
Absolutely.
to be kept.
Absolutely.
Mary Ikoku, I'd like to thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Well.